Recently, we've been doing more video. We've got years of video recorded, but we're just now starting to flow it out for listeners or viewers because technology has changed and allowed us to present some of that. With that comes some unique challenges. Like, for example, 911 Calls podcast has always had a certain intro song and the outro that goes on forever, you know. Doesn't really work for video. So, we all have attention spans like a goldfish. TikTok gives you 15 seconds. So, intros, we've been paring some of them down, and some of your old favorites may be adjusted slightly. With that, I had to come into the 911 Calls intro song and make some adjustments. When it comes to creating music for a podcast, there's 10 ways to Sunday to do it. Most creators, most guys that just start out, they might find a song they like on YouTube, and if it's license free or licensable, they may ask for permission to use it for an intro song or an outro song. We've done that for a handful of shows. TCK, as many of you know, it was a previously created song with additional tracks that were added by me, like the banjo part. Adding the Halloween theme music was part of that integration. Sometimes it's a hybrid effort. Sometimes it's just out of the box. Back in the day, when I was doing edits on Dark Topic, come to find out the Dark Topic theme song is actually just a song from YouTube that Jack used. When it comes to the music, the intros and outros, sometimes they're just licensed music. Sometimes they're more involved. And so what you're looking at here, if you can see it, are all of the tracks that I created the theme song for 911 Calls that many of you may have heard. And I had to come in and I make some adjustments on it. So I thought I would show you. As you can see, I've got a bunch of synths that I've used to create the various tracks and effects, the rhythm and all that, even my voice, which the low voice guy, I'm sure most of you know, is just me necked down a couple octaves. I thought I'd show you how I created the 911 Calls podcast theme song. I wish I did more of this still. Time is a constraint, so some things like music for a podcast intro may be out of my control, or maybe there's not enough time, or we find something that we really like. For example, Guestnicity is a licensed song. I don't know about History Goon. It's a cool song. I should ask Kevin about that. Chase does his own music. Crime Machine was a 20 plus track intro song, out intro and outro. 911 Calls kind of fits in the middle. I wanted to get something out the door, so I used a lot of synthesizers to do what's called arpeggiation. It's easier to create a whole bunch of notes using a synthesizer rather than pulling out a guitar and playing something. Leaned on synths heavy and drum machines for 911 Calls. I don't know if this is interesting to you. I thought I'd show you how it goes. But anyway, check this out. So what we have here, the first track up here is my voice. And I messed with it a lot using some plugins. I've got an EQ on it. I have a plugin called Little Alter Boy, which alters your voice. And if you use it right, you can get pretty natural sounds from it. In this case, I wanted something that fit with the synth, so it's a little more gravelly and sort of like something you'd hear coming out of a Nintendo. And then noise gate, because back then I didn't have good equipment. I think I recorded it on like the first microphone I ever had on a 2012 MacBook. Another EQ just to balance some things out and get the boomy, and then a leveler. So some nerdy things. But anyway, check this out. So this is how that track sounds with all of the stuff on it altering my voice. So hopefully you can hear this. Here we go.
This is the 911 Calls podcast with the operator.
So that's just my voice, and then I put it through some plugins to kind of create that. I need to find some timing to put that into the track that sits there until I'm ready to use it. And then we've got the first thing that you hear in the soundtrack, the synth that comes in, da, 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 and that's me just hitting a key. As you can see here, if I zoom in on this green track down here, you can see da 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 da. Here you can see all these little dots are me hitting the keys on the synth and then holding a key. When you hold the key with this particular synth, this is short intro arp. So it's this arpeggiator synth that I use. I've programmed it using a bunch of filters to create an arpeggio that I want to use, which is basically just a synthesizer running through a sequence of notes. Let's see what that sounds like. I've muted all the other tracks. This is the very beginning, and it may sound familiar. That's all I needed for that. I wanted to have that come in, but in a different octave, so it kind of caught your ear. So that's your intro. It kind of, the song's starting. If I mute that and play the next one, it's a similar synth. This one here, this full arpeggio, but it's got more parts to it. So let me zoom out. You can kind of see what's going on here. Same thing, da 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 da. And then it comes in again. Both of these come in again. This short intro arp, you can see that it comes in here, da 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 da, and it drops way down here in this little line, and then it comes back in really high. And what's kind of like a heartbreak a bit is when you create a song for an intro, sometimes you're not sure. Because when I create a song like this, I'm just creating what my brain and heart wants to make, right? So I'm not thinking, okay, it needs to be 30 seconds or anything like that. I'm just messing around until I like what I like. Then you go back and cut it down for production so that it's not 5 minutes long. It fits, you don't get bored. And then the intro and the episode starts. Usually around 30 seconds to impress people. As you can see here with this one, it's much longer than 30 seconds. So there was a lot to play with. But anyway, so the second synth sounds like this. So it's just a kind of a variation on the theme, but brings it up into an audible register that complements well. So now if we've got those two playing and the operator voice talking, this is how it starts to sound. Might start sounding familiar. Get everything in screen here. And then grow that. Why can't I grow it? Here we go. All right, so now it sounds something like this.
This is the 911 Calls podcast with the operator.
Okay, it's starting to come together. I like what I'm doing. I like what I'm hearing. Next thing is it needs some rhythm, needs some beats. So I use a couple rhythm synths here, drum synths, to create those. And so if I drop out everything and I just do the first rhythm that you hear, then here's the first rhythm that you hear just by itself. Okay. And then like I did with so kind of echoing or mirroring what's happening with the synth and then another synth coming in and kind of responding to the other synth. I wanted that same kind of thing with the drums. So I created a second drum pattern that comes in after that, and that sounds like this. Here's what's wild about that is a drum pattern running through a series of oscillators. It's like it's doing more synth than drum. I think I actually screwed up and pressed the wrong things and turned on oscillators, and I was like, oh, that kind of sounds cool. So now if I build it up again, we have what ended up becoming the whole song. And I'll get some of these synths out of the way, and you can see that it is actually quite a long song. So let's play it. And this may be, I think this is a first. I don't think anyone's ever heard the entire 911 Calls podcast soundtrack because I've never been able to use it for anything. It's not in the outro because the outro is kind of that soft, tug on your heartstrings piano. And I can only use 30 seconds of the song for the intro. And now it's even shorter with video content. So you guys can hear this. I don't know if this is interesting, but this is how a song is made when I have time. And speaking of Crime Machine, because Jack wrote those and I had very few voice parts in it, the majority of the time I was spending with an audio file of Jack's story and then me creating multiple tracks of different effects, like audible effects. In the episode where the whites are abducted by aliens, everything from car noise to a car stopping to the gravel on the road to the car starting up again, just a car moving behind the story being told could be 8 tracks. And one is the car, one is an engine stopping, another is gravel on the road. And then in your stereo field, I need the gravel to be kind of back here, but I need the engine up for, so you're messing with, it's called Foley or special effects, those audio effects. And then on top of that, you have soundtracks. So in the old days with Crime Machine, I'd play the mood music behind it and then add those sound effects in and everything. I don't have time for that anymore. I miss it. I kind of miss doing all that, but this one I had to edit. So I thought, oh, why don't I show you how at least something's made. So let's rewind and turn the operator voice on. And this is, I'll just let this play through so you can hear the entire 911 Calls audio. And if you're wondering what this grade track here is, these are all MIDI, musical instrument digital interface. So when you press notes on a keyboard, it's just sending signals to a computer and then triggering the synthesizer plugins. When you're done with all that, you bounce all of your tracks and you smash them together into an audio file. This here is the audio version of these other tracks down here, which are all the digital inputs. It's like computer code. And then this top one is the waveform, or the what would be the same as like an MP3, for example. Anyway, let's listen to this and then I'll just fade myself out. How about that? Here we go. I'll push play.
This is the 911 Calls podcast with the operator.
There you go.